parents said. Kids under 10 eat in the garage. Then watched every grandchild drag their plates out there laughing. For a few seconds nobody moved. You could hear the soft hiss of the gravy boat still bubbling, the clink of my dad's carving knife as he set it down. My daughter's fingers tightened around her fork. My son, already on edge from all the noise, froze with his hands hovering over his mashed potatoes like he'd been caught stealing. Then Ava, my 9-year-old niece, scraped her chair back and grinned. "Come on, you heard them," she said, standing up and scooping her plate into her hands. "Garage party!" And just like that, like it was a game instead of exile, every kid at the table, 7 grandkids in total, started grabbing their plates and cutlery and napkins and trudging toward the laundry door, a clattering parade of plastic cups and wobbling sausages. The older ones laughed, the younger ones stumbled to keep up, and my parents just stared. It was Christmas lunch this year, the first, proper, one at my parents' place since COVID and my dad's heart surgery and 100 other reasons we'd had to do smaller things or separate things. I'm 35F, my husband Luke is 36M, our kids are Mia, 8, and Jonah, 6. My parents are 63 and 65, and they care a lot about impressions. The tablecloth has to be ironed. The ham has to come from that one butcher. The good plates only come out if there are outside guests to see them. And apparently this year, the grandkids had to eat in the garage so the adults could have one nice, calm meal for once in the dining room. When my mom first texted the rule, I thought it was a bad joke. It was the Wednesday before Christmas and I was at my desk, brain half melted from answering emails that should have been meetings and meetings that should have been emails. My phone buzzed in the corner of my screen. Mum read heart. Just finalizing seating for Sunday. Kids under 10 will eat in the garage this year, easier for mess/noise. We'll set it up cute. XX. I remember rereading it 3 times, waiting for the follow-up, LOL, or the jokes that never came. I took a screenshot and dropped it straight into the sibling group chat. Me. Carla, older sister. Please tell me that's photoshopped. Matt, younger brother. Yes, the traditional nativity scene. Mary, Joseph, Jesus, and the kids banished to the garage. Me. I'm actually shaking a bit, WTF. Within a minute, Carla was calling me. Tell me she didn't, were her first words. She did, I said. And she said it like she was telling me what brand of cranberry sauce she bought. I could hear my nephew yelling in the background, some cartoon-themed song blaring. I mean, logically, Carla said, slipping into her corporate voice. I get not wanting the toddlers near the crystal. But the garage? Like they're dogs? It's not about logic, I said. It's about the fact that last year Jonah melted down when he dropped his peas and Dad said he'd ruin the table. This feels like a very neat solution to that problem. Remove the problem child and all potential problem children. The thing about Jonah is, he's autistic. We only got the official diagnosis last year, but I knew long before any pediatrician wrote it down. Change is hard for him. Noise is hard. People talking over each other, the clink of cutlery, the smell of 5 different foods at once, it all stacks up in his brain until he either shuts down or explodes. We've been working with an OT and have a whole toolkit now: headphones, fidget toys, breaks. But my parents don't really buy it. When we told them the diagnosis, Mum said, "Oh, we're all a bit on the spectrum these days, aren't we?" And Dad said, "He just needs firm boundaries. In my day we called that being naughty." Last Christmas, Jonah knocked over a glass of water reaching for the gravy boat. It spilled across the table, and he panicked, started flapping his hands, making this distressed keening noise. I jumped up to help, talking to him softly, trying to ground him. Dad stood too, but instead of grabbing a towel he grabbed the back of Jonah's chair and yanked it. "This is what I mean," he said loud enough that everyone at the table went quiet. "He's too wound up. We can't even get through lunch." You lot let the kids run wild and then wonder why they can't behave. Peter. Mum hissed, But she was dabbing at the tablecloth more than looking at Jonah. I took Jonah into the hallway, sat on the floor with him until his breathing slowed, my knees going numb on the tiles. He kept saying, "Sorry, sorry, sorry, I broke Christmas." And I kept saying, "You didn't break anything, sweetheart, it was an accident." When I came back, cheeks hot from angry crying, Dad made some comment about taking things too personally. And Mum muttered that maybe next year we could do a kids' table somewhere else. To reduce stress. I thought it was just venting. Apparently it was a plan. So yeah, seeing kids under 10 will eat in the garage, in writing, with a smiley XX on the end, felt like a slap. I wrote back, trying to keep my thumbs from going full nuclear. Hey, I'm not comfortable with Jonah eating in the garage. Or Mia, to be honest. Could we maybe set up a kids' table at the end of the dining room instead? The 3 dots appeared. Disappeared. Reappeared. Mum read heart. It's just a practical choice, love. Too many little ones at the big table, it's chaos. We'll put them near the open garage door, nice breeze, fairy lights. They'll love it. I stared at my phone. Nice breeze was, generously, a draft that smelled faintly of petrol and laundry powder. Can Jonah at least sit with us? New places are hard for him. She replied almost instantly. If he sits at the dining table, he'll expect it every year. We need consistency. You said yourself he needs routine. I actually laughed. One of those short, hysterical barks that makes coworkers look up. In the sibling chat, Matt wrote, "Should we just eat in the garage too? Like we're all under 10 at heart." Carla. I'm actually not joking, I'm not letting Oscar, 5, and Ava, 9, eat in the shed while we drink champagne on linen. The next few days were a weird zigzag between trying to enjoy the lead up to Christmas with my own little family, baking cookies, driving around to look at lights, and composing angry texts in my head to my parents. Every time I imagined confronting them, I ended up 12 again, standing in the kitchen while Mum said, "Lower your voice." And Dad said, "Don't take that tone with me. Luke is calmer than I am." He tends to sit quietly in the middle of my rants, then say 1 or 2 sentences that hit the center of the thing. "This doesn't feel like an event you actually want to go to," he said one night while we were wrapping presents. "It's Christmas," I said too quickly. "You go, that's what you do." "Do we?" he said. "Is that a law?" "It's for the kids," I said. "For Grandma." He nodded. "Okay, but if it's for the kids, is putting them in the garage what's best for them?" I knew he was right, and it made me feel tired more than anything else. I didn't want to do some big boycott. I wanted my parents to just be normal grandparents for once and not turn everything into a power play. In the end, we didn't boycott. We went. Partly for Grandma, partly because I wasn't ready to start World War III without at least trying to see if this could be salvaged. But I did decide one thing. I wasn't going to force my kids to eat anywhere they didn't want to. If Jonah freaked out, we'd leave. If Mia wanted to sit with us, I'd sit wherever she sat. Christmas Day was hot in that particular Australian way where it feels like the sun is personally offended by your existence. We pulled up at my parents' house and I could already see the folding tables through the open garage door. To their credit, they had tried. There were 2 plastic trestle tables pushed together, covered with cartoon Christmas tablecloths. Paper plates with Santa faces, red plastic cups, tinsel wrapped around the legs of a rusty shelving unit. Someone had stringed up fairy lights along the garage door frame. There was even a little Bluetooth speaker on a crate, playing kids' Christmas songs. Underneath the pine fresh spray and sugar cookies, though, you could still smell engine oil, old grass clippings, that metallic garage smell that clings to concrete. A pedestal fan whirred weakly in the corner. It looked like exactly what it was, a dressed-up afterthought. Inside, the dining room was a different planet. Air conditioning. The good tablecloth. China plates. Crystal glasses. Candles unscented, so as not to interfere with the food experience, as Mum had once said. Place cards with everyone's names in Mum's careful cursive, except for the kids. They had a single laminated sign in the hallway. Kids' table, with an arrow pointing to the garage. I saw Jonah's eyes flick between the two spaces, his hands starting to fidget with the hem of his shirt. "Hey buddy," Luke said, crouching down so they were eye level. "See those fairy lights out there? Looks like a disco." "Why are there two tables?" Jonah asked. "Because Grandma thought it would be fun to have a kids' party in the garage," I said, choosing my words carefully. "You don't have to sit out there if you don't want to. We'll figure it out, okay?" He chewed his lip. "Is it loud in there?" he asked, nodding toward the dining room where my uncle was already booming greetings. "Probably," I said. "But we have your headphones." Mia bounced next to us, already glittering with excitement. She's my social butterfly. "Can I sit with Ava?" she asked. "I saw her bag near the garage." "If Ava wants you there and you want to sit there, yeah," I said. "We'll see where everyone else is sitting." Make no promises, my therapist had told me when we talked about Christmas. Don't say, "It'll be fine." Say, "We'll deal with it together." Mum swept in from the kitchen, lipstick already slightly smudged from heat and stress. "There you are," she said, kissing the air next to my cheek. "You're late. The ham is drying out." "We're 5 minutes past 1, I said. She flapped a hand. "I told everyone once so they'd get here by 1:30. You know how people are." She crouched in front of Jonah. "Look what we did for you kids," she said, voice going up half an octave. "You've got your own special table in the garage. Isn't that fun?" Jonah just stared at her, picking at the Velcro on his sandals. "What if I don't want to?" he said quietly. Mum's smile faltered. "Oh, don't start," she said, still in the sing-song voice. "It'll be great. You can be as messy and noisy as you like out there. No one will tell you off." She shot me a look at that last part, like she'd done us a favor. I took a breath. "Mom, we talked about this," I said. "If Jonah finds the garage too much or too weird, we'll bring him inside with us." Her eyes hardened. "And then the others will want to follow," she said. "And we'll be right back where we started. I made this decision for everyone's comfort, including mine. Please don't undermine it in front of the kids." Before I could answer, Mum's friend Sandra arrived in a waft of perfume and chatter, and Mum floated away to greet her. Classic. Drop the grenade, walk off. We grazed on nibblies, made small talk, everyone doing their best to ignore the tension humming under the surface. I could see Carla across the room, jaw tight. Her kids, Ava, 9, and Oscar, 5, were in the hallway, peering into the garage with complicated expressions. Matt's toddler, Ellie, was asleep in his arms, oblivious. Eventually Dad came into the lounge and clapped his hands. "All right," he said. "Lunch is served." Adults at the main table, kids under 10 out in the garage. Chop chop, let's go. And that's where we started. Parents' decree. Kids frozen. Me pressing my thumb into my palm so hard it hurt. The thing I didn't expect, and the thing that kind of saved everything, in a way, was the kids' reaction. They didn't hear the hierarchy in it the way I did. They heard, "We have a separate room where we can be feral without supervision." Ava, who has always been a tiny revolutionary, seized the moment. "Garage party!" she yelled. "No boring speeches." Oscar giggled and bolted toward the door, his 2 big socks sliding on the tiles. Mia shot me a questioning look. "If you want to go, go," I said, my voice wobbly. "We'll bring you food." She grinned, grabbed her plate with both hands, and joined the parade. Even Jonah, after a second's hesitation, picked up his plate, clutched it close to his chest, and followed Mia, his noise-canceling headphones already halfway on. I watched them stream out, 7 little bodies, plates piled with food, laughing. The very reaction my parents probably would have wanted if this were a quirky Pinterest idea instead of a control move. Then a funny thing happened. My cousin's daughter, Lily, who is 12 and therefore technically allowed at the big table, watched them go, then looked at the dining room. All adults, all already slipping back into their suit jackets of politeness. She made a face. "I'm going to the garage too," she announced, scooping up her plate. "I'm on kid duty." "Lily," her mum said. "You can't all just go out there, that's the point." "Why not?" Lily asked, shrugging. "I can see my cousins twice a year, or I can listen to Uncle John talk about interest rates. Easy choice." And off she went. Dad opened his mouth, then closed it again, his eyes following the line of kids through the laundry. The screen door banged shut behind them. I felt something unclench in my chest, just a little. Dad cleared his throat. "Right," he said louder. "Adults, sit. Let's not let the food go cold." We all took our assigned seats. I ended up 2 away from Dad, directly across from Mom, who was still flushed, whether from the heat or from the host skipping over her Versace dress in favor of telling me I looked radiant when we first walked in. That was a separate petty little victory I'm still processing. The plates in front of us were perfectly arranged: 2 slices of ham, some turkey, crispy potatoes, green beans. Silence fell for a moment as people adjusted napkins and picked up cutlery. Through the open living room window, I could hear music from the garage. "Jingle Bell Rock," being sung off-key by several small voices. A burst of giggling. Someone, probably Matt, yelling, "No, you can't sword fight with breadsticks!" I stared down at my plate. My kids were 20 meters away, eating on plastic at a wobbly table on stained concrete, and I was supposed to pretend this was normal. Luke nudged my knee under the table. I looked up. He raised his eyebrows, his silent "Are we really doing this?" I thought about Jonah, who thrives when he's around 1 or 2 people he trusts and folds in on himself when he feels exiled. I thought about my therapist asking, "What would it look like if you chose your kid's sense of belonging over your parents' approval?" My chair scraped a little as I pushed it back. Every head turned. "I'm going to go eat with the kids," I heard myself say. My voice sounded oddly calm. Mum frowned. "Don't be ridiculous," she said. "You're not under 10. Some people chuckled politely, like she'd made a joke. "I know," I said. "I'm their mum." Dad said, warning in his tone. "Sit down. We barely see you. We wanted one meal with just adults, just this once." "That's not actually what you said," I replied. "You said kids under 10 eat in the garage. You didn't say anything about adults not being allowed." Carla set down her fork. "Same," she said. "Ava's been talking about seeing Mia all week. If she's in the garage, I'm in the garage." Her husband, Tom, looked like he wanted to sink into the floor but mumbled, "Yeah, I'll come too." Matt hesitated for half a second, then shrugged. "Ellie's up now anyway," he said, bouncing his toddler on his hip. "She'll eat more if she's watching the big kids. Save me a seat on the oil stain." Chairs squeaked. Napkins hit the table. It was weirdly quiet, all things considered. Dad looked genuinely stunned. "You're all being ridiculous," he said. "You're going to leave us sitting here by ourselves?" "You're welcome to come," I said. "There's plenty of room in the garage." Mum's face did something complicated. Hurt, anger, embarrassment all running across it like storm clouds. "People will think we're strange," she whispered. "People already think we're strange," Matt said lightly. "Might as well lean in." He kissed Grandma's cheek. "You coming, Nan?" Grandma has lived long enough, and buried enough people, that she no longer cares much about social niceties. She grinned. "The garage has better music," she said, and slowly pushed herself up with her cane. That was the moment Dad's whole "we're doing this my way" structure wobbled. He looked at his mother, then at the emptying table, then at the doorway to the hallway where you could see fairy lights flickering. "I'm too old to eat in a bloody garage," he muttered, but it sounded more like he was trying to convince himself than us. We didn't wait for full conversion. We took our plates and filed out, me, Luke, my siblings, spouses, Grandma, even Auntie Sue after a second's dithering. The carpet turned to cold tiles under our feet, then colder concrete. The garage was chaos in the best way. Kids perched on mismatched chairs, legs swinging, plates already a mess of gravy and crumbs. Someone had dumped a tub of Lego on the floor near the back. Jonah sat at the end of the table, headphones on, methodically eating his potatoes. Mia and Ava were in the middle, arguing about who got the bigger Yorkshire pudding. When they saw us, Mia's face lit up. "Mom!" she yelled. "We made a rule that if you drop your peas you have to sing a song." "Terrifying," I said. "I'll be very careful." I slid into an empty chair next to Jonah. Luke sat on his other side. Carla squeezed between two of the kids, not caring that she nearly sat on a packet of wipes. Grandma took the end chair, leaning her cane against the toolbox. The concrete was cold under my sandals. The fairy lights buzzed softly. The fan clicked every few rotations. It smelled like oil and sugar and family. And for the first time in a long time at my parents' house, I felt relaxed. We ate. We talked. We wiped up spilled gravy with paper towels without anyone making a comment about tablecloths. When Jonah got overwhelmed by the noise, Luke took him to the driveway to look at clouds for 5 minutes, then he came back and ate 2 more bites. When Mia dropped her peas, she stood on her chair and sang Jingle Bells in a dramatic vibrato and everyone clapped. At some point, I glanced back toward the house. Through the open internal door I could see the dining room table, still set, now mostly empty. Dad sat at the head, his plate half-eaten. Mum was next to him, back very straight, eyes fixed on her food. One of Dad's cronies from golf sat near the other end, looking extremely awkward about the cavern of empty chairs between them. Dad caught my eye. For a second, our gazes locked. Something like accusation flashed across his face. Something like loss, too. Like he built a table and then realized nobody wanted to sit at it. I looked away before I could read too much into it. After lunch, the great Tupperware migration began. Plates were scraped, leftovers packed, kids wiped down. The garage gradually emptied of food and filled with toys. Someone found the bocce set. Someone else started a game of tips in the driveway. Inside, Mum cleared the dining table in tight, controlled movements. I went in to help, because years of conditioning are hard to shake, and also because I didn't want her to hurt herself hauling platters alone. "You didn't have to come out with us," I said, stacking plates. "You know that, right?" "We weren't punishing you." She made a derisive noise. "Could have fooled me," she said. "Walking out like that. Making a scene." "There wasn't a scene," I said quietly. "We just moved locations. In front of everyone." She snapped. "Peter's clients were here. Sandra's husband. People notice when the host's own children abandon the table." "We didn't abandon you," I said. "We chose to sit with our kids instead of enforcing a rule that made them feel separate. They were having fun," she said. "You saw them. Laughing, singing. You think I'd do this if I thought it would hurt them?" "Yes," I said before I could stop myself. "Because you think hurt is the same as discipline. You think as long as you can convince yourself something is for their own good, it doesn't matter how they feel about it." She slammed a plate down a little too hard. "I grew up sitting in the laundry with my cousins while the adults ate," she said. "We weren't allowed in the dining room at all. That's just how it was. It didn't kill us. It also didn't exactly make you feel included," I said. "You tell those stories and you always sound a little sad." She bit her lip. For a moment, I saw tears gather in the corners of her eyes before she blinked them away angrily. "What do you want from me, Emma?" she asked. "You want me to pretend your children aren't difficult? You want me to let Jonah scream at the table while everyone sits in awkward silence? You want gravy on the carpet?" "I want you to believe me when I tell you what he needs," I said. "I want you to stop acting like my kids are a problem to be managed so you can have your magazine spread version of Christmas. I want you to stop punishing him preemptively for things he hasn't even done yet. You didn't say, hey, if it's too much he can eat somewhere quieter. You said kids under 10 eat in the garage. Full stop. No nuance. She opened her mouth, closed it. You humiliated your father, she said instead. He was so excited to carve at the head of the table with his grandkids watching. He could have carved in the garage, I said. The knife works on concrete too. She almost smiled. Almost. You always have to contradict me, she said wearily. I'm 35, I said. I'm not contradicting you, I'm disagreeing with you. We worked in silence for a bit. Through the open window we could hear the kids shrieking with laughter as Matt pretended to be a zombie. Mum set down the last plate and leaned on the counter. When she spoke again, her voice was quieter. When I texted that thing about the garage, she said, I wasn't thinking about Jonah. I was thinking about last year, when the table was a mess and your father was in such a mood and I felt like I'd failed as a hostess. I thought if I took the kids out of the equation it would be simpler. And whose Christmas would that make simpler? I asked. She sighed. Mine, she admitted. And maybe his. Not yours. Not theirs. None of us need you to be a perfect hostess, I said. We need you to be a grandma. She closed her eyes for a moment, then opened them and wiped at the corner of one quickly. I don't know how to do that, she said. We didn't have that growing up. We had adults, and we had children. Separate worlds. I keep trying to build the world I thought I was supposed to have, with the big table and the quiet kids, and you lot keep ruining it. We're not ruining it, I said gently. We're updating it. She huffed. Well, maybe I don't like the update, she muttered. That's okay, I said. You don't have to like it. But if the choice is between you liking it and my kids feeling like second-class citizens, I'm going to choose them, every time. We stood there, breathing the same kitchen air, both suddenly very aware of the years between us. Are you going to stop coming for Christmas now? She asked, trying to sound casual and failing. We haven't decided, I said honestly. But I can tell you this, we won't come to any event where our kids are treated like mess to be managed. If next year you say, kids under 10 in the garage, we'll say, okay, we're not coming. She flinched like I'd slapped her. You wouldn't dare, she said, but there wasn't a lot of conviction behind it. Try me, I said. Later, when we got home and the kids were finally asleep, I sat on the couch scrolling mindlessly and feeling that weird post-family gathering hangover. Luke came and sat next to me, handed me a mug of tea. You okay? He asked. I told my mother we wouldn't come back if she did the garage thing again, I said. So I'm either finally growing a backbone or I just destroyed Christmas for the next decade. He snorted. If Christmas can be destroyed by not eating in your parents' dining room, it wasn't very sturdy to begin with, he said. I laughed, then started crying, that messy mixture where your shoulders shake and your nose runs and you can't quite explain what's wrong because it's everything and nothing. It just hit me, I said between hiccups. How quickly everyone moved to the garage when we did. How empty that table looked. How hard my parents have worked to build this image, and how little any of us actually want it. He put his arm around me. The garage was more fun, he said. Let's be honest. It smelled like oil, I said. And sugar and crayons and kids, he said. That's Christmas. I'm writing this now a few weeks later, because it's still rattling around in my head. My parents haven't brought it up again directly. There've been a couple of passive-aggressive comments on the family chat. Dad sending a photo of some magazine's spread Christmas table with, "Some people still appreciate tradition," as the caption, that kind of thing. But there's also been small softening. Last Sunday Mum sent a photo of a kid's book about emotions. "Got this for Jonah," she wrote. "Thought it might help. XX. I stared at it for a long time, trying to decide if it was a dig, or an attempt. I decided to assume attempt. Carla told me that when she called Mum for a chat, Mum said, "I suppose the kids liked having their own space," and didn't sound quite as bitter as she had on the day. And Jonah, the next morning, he said, "Mom, I liked the garage. It was loud but not scary loud. And when I needed clouds, Dad took me outside." Then he paused and added, very matter-of-factly, "I did not like when Grandpa shouted last year. I like when Grandpa is at golf better." Same, kid. So, yeah? Parents said. Kids under 10 eat in the garage. Then watched every grandchild drag their plates out there laughing. In the moment, it felt like the most petty kind of segregation. A line drawn between real people and inconvenient small ones. It still kind of does. But it also accidentally exposed something my parents have never wanted to face. Given a choice between sitting at their perfect table and sitting in a slightly grimy garage with the people they actually feel safe with, their children and grandchildren will choose the garage. I don't know yet what that means for next Christmas. Maybe we'll host. Maybe we'll rotate. Maybe my parents will come around, or maybe they'll be bitter forever about the Christmas their grown kids abandoned them for the garage. What I do know is this. I'm done teaching my kids that other people's comfort matters more than their belonging. If that means a few more meals on concrete and a few less on linen, so be it.